Chris and
Terribly episode 49.
Ain't it fine?
It is slime time, live from the House of Grind.
Jeez, that worked out right.
Fucking hell.
Where do we begin?
What a week. Yeah, I mean, there's obviously going to be a little bit of preamble, but sweet Jesus, man. Yesterday morning, Johnny sent me a message and he was like, low key, it's been a slow news week. And that was about 10:30 in the morning.
That was about, I'll give it 10, half nine. Because it wasn't long after that I was like, something weird's happening in Parliament, and I think it's the headline.
So I was like, yeah, you're right, because we had like,
it was just Liz Truss.
Kanye West and Adidas to talk about.
Yeah.
We had Liz Truss to talk about. We had Chris Kaba to talk about. And we were like, yeah, we gotta flesh this out, buddy. And then
something weird happened in Parliament.
An hour later, shit went very, very wild, very quickly.
Very left.
But before we get into all of that, which we are going to unpack.
Yes.
Shout out
Yes.
our Amazon Music listeners.
Yes.
Our Spotify listeners.
Yes.
Our Apple Podcast listeners.
Yes.
Our SoundCloud listeners.
Yes.
And our YouTube listeners
You
and
nasty,
subscribers.
nasty people.
Hope you are well. This Good and Terribly episode 49. It's your boy, Abiyade. Your boy, Johnny Vivaz.
Hello.
And we are back like we never left. Shout out Shoudo, who rolled through on the last episode. People really enjoyed how much we fucking clashed. Just to stay in alive in our friendship for the last however many years. But yeah, here we are on what is one of the most significant weeks.
Special broadcast.
In British history.
Yes.
And look, let's just be very, very clear right now, right? If your expectation is that we're going to come here and just take the piss for an hour and a half, there's some semblance of truth in that.
You damn right.
But we'll keep it
very
respectful because, I don't know, I don't speak ill of the dead under any circumstances.
No, there's some people you can speak ill of when dead.
Yeah.
There's definitely some
Let's see how I'm feeling. I'm currently sipping on Azerbaijani cognac.
Azeri, please.
Azeri. I mean, you can do both technically, but if you want to try and school me, you can.
Shouldn't.
It's both. Some Azeri cognac-y, as they call it. So
in a very fancy glass as well.
Yeah. It's cheeky.
Accusing me of being a Tory.
I'm very cultured. So let's see how I feel when this shit kicks.
Yes. Although I'm concerned, we're both far too eligible for foreign passports to really get into the crowd. We could get Shamimed.
Yeah, for real.
Straight out of Dover.
Yeah, for real. Politics is going very right.
Very, very fast.
But before we do that, Johnny, how are you? Looking lean.
Thank you very much.
Looking like you're thoroughly not enjoying life.
Absolutely not. No, absolutely not. I will say, do you know what? It's been quite a transformative couple of weeks. And it sounds extremely moist. But listeners to the last episode, remember I've embarked on the world's stupidest bet to lose a stone in a month. I'm about 2/3 of the way through, and I've got 3 weeks left to go by the time this comes out, I reckon. The target was just over 6 kilos. I'm about 4.5 down now in 10 days. So that's nice. Actually, that bit's horrendous. The constantly under eating is bleak.
I think we should add some conditions to this bet, though, to be fair.
Why?
I think you should have to maintain it for a week.
We can do separate bets afters, but you signed up.
No, but I want to adapt the bet.
You can't adapt the bet.
Why not?
Because you shook hands on
recording. Technically, I didn't shake your hand.
We said we didn't need to because it's on recording.
Yeah,
That's a verbal contract. You signed it in front of literally every listener heard you say that.
I'm not sure if they did.
I think they did. Anyway, being under...
I can edit that, by the way. I can replace audio.
Just bleep, 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 bleep. Being under-caloried is horrendous. However, it is working. But beyond the being under-caloried bit, because I'm always in a bad mood anyway, it's been quite a spiritual experience in quite a few ways.
Spiritual.
Yeah, it has been, man. It has been. So like the first one is I haven't touched booze for 3 weeks. This is the first fizzy drink that I've touched since the Vimto of the last episode.
What is it?
It's 7-Up sugar-free, which is 10 calories per bottle. I can manage that. You do get better at running on less food, but combining it with exercise is a problem. But I don't know. It's kind of come at a weird time because like I've altered some of the books that I've been reading recently, getting out of my history hole. So people would have seen that I bought a book on mindfulness. Which has become a convenient time. A book.
Are you okay?
I'm fine.
How was your mental health?
It's in a good place. It's in a good place, relatively speaking.
What provoked the purchasing of mindfulness books?
This one just had a good review, had a good rating. I was very aware that I'd read quite a lot of heavy history recently, so I thought I'd try and branch out a little bit. I also, on the back of having enjoyed Lost Connections, which was a lot of the basis of our special episode.
Yeah.
Forever shout out Ellie and Henry.
Big up.
I wanted to kind of revisit that topic because it was very enjoyable. So between that and another book, basically it's been mindfulness and kind of like Asian spirituality. So I've read another book on the topic of Ikigai, which is around Japanese Zen Buddhism, but Ikigai is about means purpose and finding a purpose in one's life. And so combined with Vietnamese Buddhist practices of mindfulness and finding a sense of purpose, gives one a more holistic sense of what's important, especially when going through a physical transformation at the same time as going through mental understanding. So it's been very wholesome.
Bro, you've been going through it, man.
Yeah.
What is this shit you are talking?
No, but it's been...
You are fasting and you are struggling.
No.
And you need inspiration.
Well, I don't know.
No, I'm joking.
But it's about living more frugally, I guess. And that's a lot of the part of messages of mindfulness and Ikigai in terms of finding purpose have been about living more basically and finding meaning in existence itself.
I hear that.
So that's been very fun, actually, and very cost effective. I'm spending a shit ton less money. I've like explicitly found myself like not clicking buy on stuff on Amazon.
I've been doing quite a bit of that myself, actually. Yeah.
And that's quite cathartic, right? It's just like it feels like a small development piece to
making that small switch from buying what you want to just buying when you need.
Yeah, or just realizing
that saves a lot of fucking cash.
So like as part of this like weight challenge, this is gonna be a stupid example, right? But like every even small wins are wins. I was like, okay, fine, I need to sweat. Let me go buy a box, one of those boxing sweat tops, right? And they're 75 quid for the box raw Hagler one.
Wow, do you shop at Lululemon or something?
No, it's Amazon.
Ugh.
But I was like, actually, I've got bare fucking Under Armours from when I used to kick ball. Does the same job. So why would I do that? Whereas, like, I guess a couple months ago, I'd have been like, oh, fuck it, 75 quid, just spend it, right?
Just spend it.
So, I mean, half of this is bullshit because I've booked a very expensive holiday that I'm going to be brassed for. But anyway, the point I'm getting at is that it's been transformed.
What? Wait, what? Where?
Yeah, I'm going to the Dominican Republic and back to Miami.
When?
November.
Huh.
Going back for Art Basel, baby. This time I'll try to buy you a book that you don't have.
Yeah. I did say I was going to get on that, didn't I?
Come.
When are you going to be in Miami?
Art Basel. So we get there on the 28th, which is the day before England v Wales, and we come back on Saturday the 3rd. So it's actually, that would be only 5 work days if you came for both weekends.
Oh.
We can talk off pod.
Yeah, this could be a developing story.
Developing story.
Yeah.
A mutual friend of ours, who I won't name because I don't think he's ready to say, is saying that he'll be there.
Oh, yeah?
So...
Okay. Do I like that person?
Yeah.
Are you the same mutual friend? Ah, okay. Shout out him.
Yes.
I bumped into him at Carnival.
Oh, you did?
It's the most burst I've ever seen him in my life.
Swear.
Oh my God.
Shame.
Holy shit.
We should really name and shame, but we won't for now. We'll be guided.
We won't.
So anyway, yeah, like I said, apart from booking this holiday, which is itself an experiential spend, not a material spend.
Of course.
It's been quite transformative.
Of course.
Yeah.
Experiential. Trip to Miami.
Trip to Miami.
Yeah.
Bullshit. And an all-inclusive in the Dom Rep.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Punta Cana?
Yeah, of course.
Don't know.
All inclusive.
Yeah,
and be there. So basically, I'm there for the 2 weeks of the World Cup. But yeah, it's been a nice 2 weeks. No booze, eating very healthily, losing weight, exercising every day, not touching any haram substances.
Yeah.
Getting in touch with the mental health and whatnot. It's been transformative.
Yeah. All you non-drinkers, you're a living cheat code. Because even me, when I made drastic changes to my alcohol consumptions year 1 and year 2 of the pandemic. Not because I'm a big drinker, because I'm not a big drinker at all. But when I made those changes to my life, man, my sleep quality was amazing.
Sleep is the first thing that goes through the roof, no?
Yeah, it was amazing. My skin was amazing. And honestly, the most important thing, like my sharpness, the sharpness of my brain. I could just feel it. It was like my man, Bradley Cooper, when he takes that little see-through tablet in Limitless.
Yeah, yeah.
And everything just goes...
Boom. So even the way that we booked the holiday, me and Ollie, shout out, went to go
nice.
watch the Spurs game. Spurs v Fulham. Stayed sober the game, came back, and we were like, well, we've been talking about it, should we just do it? Boom. Booked it all on the spot within an hour.
Liked it.
So, you know, when you're not boozing, I don't want to become a fucking evangelist, but these things help, you know, these little changes.
Nice, man. Good luck. So you think you're going to take 100 quid of my money, basically?
Yeah. Yours and 4 other mugs are all going to pay up.
I don't want you to succeed. I mean, all that nice, that stuff you just said was all cute and nice and stuff. You're my mate. You're my mate, but yeah, I want you to actually not. I want you to get fat. So, anybody with very good persuasion skills.
Anyone who comes up to me with arepas
strong in
will see me fail.
temptation.
Yeah.
Churros, arepas, all of that Spanish stuff. Yeah, but
Anyway, how have you been, Rich?
I've been chill. Too busy. It's just like, I'm a homebody. I like staying at home, goddammit. But there's been a lot of things going on that have been taking me out of my house. So that's been enjoyable.
You should read my book on mindfulness to help you compartmentalize it.
Man, I'm always on that stuff. I'm always trying to actively clear out things in my life, in my mind, material things I'm always trying to get rid of and sell. I'm the annoying person who's just like, do we need this? Have you used it in a year? If you haven't, because you're not going to use it in another year, so we got to try. I'm that guy. I'm constantly sort of like trying to make things very feng shui and, as you say, quite zen-like.
What's his name? Thich Nhat Hanh, that's it. The Miracle of Mindfulness.
Okay.
Very small book.
All right.
It's not preachy, but the dude is a Nobel Peace Prize winning monk.
Nice.
So I recommend to everyone get onto it.
Nice. Yeah. But otherwise, I'm good. Everything is pretty blessed. Obviously, I'm going to be in London a lot more now.
Yes.
Since the work situation's changed a little bit.
Promotions.
But yeah, everything is blessed. Everyone I love feels the love and is blessed too. So we thank God.
Amen.
We thank God.
Yes. Boy.
It's happened.
I think I phrased that as the headline. Did I not in the chat?
Yeah.
The headline is coming.
So we were chilling, as I said before, we were talking about, and you know, as podcasters, this is quite a nervous situation the day before recording when there's not really much to talk about. We were discussing the fact that there was not much to talk about. And then all of a sudden, Johnny, who obviously, being the political correspondent, was watching House of Commons and noticed that there was some commotion taking place at the front where Liz Truss and Keir Starmer sit. A message was passed to Liz Truss, and then the message was passed to my lovely ginger, Angela Rayner, who then passed the message to Keir. And then all shit went down. And Johnny was like, there could be 2 outcomes here. I think he said it's got to be like maybe something to do with terrorism, but maybe we would have heard about it, or it's got to be something to do with the Queen. A very good shout. And I was like, oh, fuck. And then I went to Twitter immediately, which obviously you guys know I don't really do. And then obviously that's when you start seeing, might be the Queen. And then we started hearing everybody is going to Balmoral to go and see her. Oh no, actually first Buckingham Palace made a statement, which was not pretty uncommon. They don't really do that at all.
And she never liked statements about her health. She considered it a private matter, which is why it's weird.
And I work for a news organization, so I have access to basically all news sources in the world at any given time. So I started doing a little bit of research, and I started seeing all the family members going to Balmoral where the Queen was, and like Harry and Meghan were in the UK conveniently, and they made their way over there. And I was like, yeah, no, she's kicked it. She's most definitely kicked it. But then what obviously followed that was a great deal of uncertainty. BBC changed their programming from regular programming to just BBC News.
And like Hugh Edwards back to back.
They grabbed in the main guy, Hugh Edwards, Big Daddy Hugh. I don't want to call him Big Daddy Hugh. How did I follow you? How did I follow you into that one? Yeah. Disgusting. Yeah. Big Daddy Hugh. And what we noticed about him, it was that he was already in all black.
Yeah.
Which said to me that he had fallen into a bad boy piece of information. And then obviously everybody who was anybody started talking about their sources telling them that this thing had already happened. And, you know, as far as I was concerned, the omens weren't really that great.
No.
Sure enough, we found out at around 6:30 that a couple of hours before, Queen Elizabeth II was no longer with us and had passed away at the almighty age of 96 after 70 years at the helm. So look, just want to get the respect out of the way first. Yo, 70 years at the helm, 96 years old. Johnny, come on, man. Come on. This is our queen. Come on.
I mean, she's not even the longest reigning monarch. She tinned it 2 years before Louis XIV. He lasted longer. So I don't want to...
Can we keep focus?
Don't want to applaud a silver medalist.
Keep focus.
She lost to a Bourbon. They don't even exist anymore.
She had been going obviously through some health complications for the last few years. I mean, famously at 95 years old, told COVID to fuck off. And obviously in the last 18 months, she has witnessed the love of her life, 99-year-old Big Prince Phil, pass away last year. Many have rightly commented that at that stage, that would have been a pretty reasonable time for her to pack it all in and say, I'm done. But she didn't. You hear many stories about people dying of a broken heart. She didn't.
She survived the loss of her cousins very well,
she lost
to be fair.
Yeah, what?
They were cousins.
Look, hey, I don't want to, hey.
What?
I mean,
they were cousins.
Let me just...
Please continue.
Yeah. Because when you say stuff like that, I am guilty by association with your nonsense, okay?
We'll get deported together.
And obviously what has followed is what we are in now, which is a national state of mourning, which is going to last for 10 days, leading up to the funeral, which will take place next week, Monday, at the time you are listening to this. Look, we did question at some point, I can't remember, maybe it was like around episode 40-ish, when we were like, we ain't seen her in a while.
Yeah.
And we thought she had gone. And it took a couple of weeks until we saw her again. But what made it quite clear to all that her health was at a really bad stage was when Liz Truss, the new PM, who we're going to talk about soon, went to visit her when she was, sworn in as the new PM. We saw pictures of the Queen for the first time in a while, and she looked very frail. She had like purple hands because, it looked like she had been using, someone used like a cannula on her or whatever it might have been, blood thinning, all these theories coming out. So it was very clear to all that she wasn't getting better, naturally. But what we didn't expect was a day after putting the blessing on Liz Truss as the new PM, she would no longer be with us herself. Naturally, this has opened up quite a bit of fleshy debate as to how we as citizens should approach mourning her, remembering her. I want to get the salute out of the way first by saying anybody, and this is me being very, very nice, because I'm a nice guy. Anybody who is dedicated to that crown, to that duty, to that civil service, deserves recognition and a round of applause.
Do they?
So that's what I want to start off by
what
saying.
Service,
she
exactly?
is probably the last of the popular monarchs. I don't think the monarchy has anybody who ever reached the popularity of Princess Diana, but I think the Queen was probably most people's close second. What now happens, obviously, is we have, to the absolute disdain of all UK rappers, King Charles III, her son, who is now our ruler. So rappers are going to have to change all those bars about Lizzy this and Lizzy that and Lizzy this and
Chasing
Lizzy that.
Charlie.
You know what I mean? It's going to be all about Charlie now. It's going to be a double entendre because Charlie means, you know what I mean, as well.
Bad things.
Yeah.
Haram
stuff. Flower, as Sanna Marine, Helsinki president might call it.
Yes.
Flower gang.
Yes.
But naturally, this has also caused quite a bit of controversy because of what the royal family stand for.
There you go.
So, I have given a very fleshy, introduction to what has happened in the last few days. I want to salute the Queen. I want to say rest in peace.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I want to say that on the face of things, she always upheld herself to a very high level of dignity. And all the stuff that we are aware they stand for didn't necessarily emanate from her in all of her duties in the public. But the reality is the royal family do stand for quite a bit of fuckery. And at that stage, I'm going to sip my Azeri cognac-y and pass over to Johnny Vivas, who's smiling like a motherfucker.
I mean, well, what do you say? What do you say? Like I said, we've got to be very careful. We're on a border force tightrope here. I will say Twitter was filled with content over the last few days. And that was certainly something to behold. It's always sad when someone loses a family member, right? And that's, I can understand in that context, it's tough for Charles, it's tough for William, for Harry. It's tough for the nonce one. It's tough for the other ones who aren't nonces. It's tough losing a grandmother. And so soon after Phil the Greek, yeah, it's tough. And in that context, fine. But like, to what extent do we owe the country? To what extent does the country owe the Queen anything? Really, what was her contribution? Okay, fine. Like, she's a useful tool of capital to roll out when trying to do shit like the Olympics and impress on the global stage. But she's really just the last bastion of a lost sense of status that this country has left. And occupied a chair that paid her a lot of money her whole life. No wonder she kept the job for 70 years. I wouldn't fucking quit. Would you?
For real. I wouldn't. And you raise a good point before I let you continue spitting. The amount of people this week who have just rehashed and recycled that one bar about how much money they bring to this country in tourism.
Oh, they don't.
It made me go to Google, bruv. And it was so funny because I was arguing this shit at work and they were like, but tourism though, they bring in hundreds of millions. I was like, hold that thought, went to Google. Revenue from royal family. It was something like 50 million a year. And I was like, and then I just said something flippant like, Madam Two Swords does more than that. And then they laughed me out of the room. And I don't like being laughed at, Johnny. So I went back on Google.
And what did you find?
And obviously I hit up the Google search bar with Madam Tussauds revenue. Yeah. Turns out Madam Tussauds are owned by Merlin, who also own Alton Towers.
Right.
They are generating 1.6 billion a year. So please.
So the wax queen makes
we know
more,
levels?
The wax queen makes more than the actual
The waxwork of the queen is probably generating more peas than the queen.
But the most
and then you have to take into account how much it costs to fucking upkeep the royal family,
bruv. Yeah. So like the most visited, I think the single most visited tourist site in Europe is the Palace of Versailles. Right, and the French haven't had royals in there for fucking hundreds of years. They seem to be dealing fine with it. Whenever you ask anyone, like, what has the Queen done in 70 years? Like, what public service? She given public, like, she's meaningfully like, okay, the one thing I'll give her credit for is that she actually turned up when Theresa May didn't to Grenfell, and that's fine. She exercised that kind of use of image to present solidarity or some kind of sympathy with people when her government didn't. But at the same time, you know, people want to present this sense of duty that she served, and the sense of duty is presented within the context of the office that she holds and her responsibility of it. Well, at the beginning of her reign, Britain was still very much a declining but an empirical power, right? There's this much fated speech of hers where on her 21st birthday in South Africa, where she makes reference to whether her life is long or short, it will be devoted to public service. But in that same speech, she makes the point of noting that she feels very much a part, or the people of South Africa have made her feel welcome, very much a part of the imperial family to which we all belong. And so this sense of empire and her being at the top of it was first and foremost in her mind. In the context of her rule, whilst she was still at the head of empire, the British were running concentration camps in Kenya and imprisoning millions. In Kenya.
Why do you say it like that? You said Kenya.
Yeah, that was the imperial way of saying it.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was an intellect flex.
A little bit.
Very good.
Thank you.
Carry on.
They were still imprisoning millions of people and brutally suppressing rebellions, notwithstanding the fact that delivering a speech in the context of an imperial family in South Africa during apartheid is also very, very sus. She didn't apologize for any of the crimes of colonialism, which were done either by her family or at the mandate of her family. Well, she didn't recognise them really, let alone apologise for them. And beyond acting as a useful tool for the new post-war capital class, the royal family really haven't done much good for the common people, to the extent that actually even the Prince's Trust is now being done for dodging taxes. But there were also a bunch of leaks that came out last year that were conveniently swept under the carpet, that she lobbied for a change in law to hide her own private wealth, and she sent private solicitors to secure exemption from transparency laws. The royals used a long-standing secretive procedure to review laws ranging from Brexit to inheritance to land policy. And she also secretly lobbied for Scottish ministers to review climate law exemptions to make her the only person exempt from climate change.
She's protecting her monies.
Her monies, yeah. And also, as acting as the H in HMRC, probably has ways of avoiding the tax.
I would say so.
That she should be paying.
I would say so, yes.
So in terms of like what the Queen has offered the country, I mean, it's bizarre. Even if we go back to the context of like finding the last deserving royal, and you know, people make a lot of bluster about Churchill got us through the war. Churchill didn't really get us through the war. The Americans and the Soviets got us through the war, and we kind of just managed to hold out for long enough. Anyone
Americans who listen to this who argue to the contrary on that stuff,
no, they're
going to love that.
I mean, they did. They turned up in Italy and bailed us out. We just about held on long enough, and Hitler was stupid enough to turn the planes around and try and bomb Russia instead of finishing us off. Anyway, what really kept the public going through World War II, as much as Churchill's bluster, was her old man, was George VI, and the decision of the royal family to stay in Buckingham Palace during the Blitz was important, and there was a lot of reference given to George VI, and so he was a deserving royal in that context. Of course, still as the head of empire and committing atrocities across the planet, and his name wasn't great, but in that context, did offer something to the people of this country at that time. What has Elizabeth offered, really? I mean, she didn't die in the job. She survived 70 years, and that's impressive.
Yes, it is.
But within the role, what do you remember beyond like a fleeting visit, perhaps to one corner of Brixton or Peckham 25 years ago? What did she do? They kind of just sit in palaces and earn money off the land. It's the last vestiges of feudalism. And it's not even cool in an impressive way, because they don't have any power of diktat anymore. It's not like they can actually do anything. Yeah. They're just kind of sucking taxes, and they're willed out. They're willed out and kept in place by the new capital class, who really wield power in the post-World War II world. And they're kind of willed out to maintain this pretense of order. And they are the last bastion of actively incorporating a constitution, as we nearly found out to our detriment when Boris was running roughshod and refusing to resign and took someone else from the ruling class to step in.
Big facts. I actually thought that on the story of King Charles, that there was something a few years ago which was like, he's not going to take over from her because of his age. Do you remember that?
There was rumours about that, but I don't think it was ever realistic.
So he's like 73 years old.
Yeah.
And he's actually got to start working now.
Yeah, it's his first day of work. Good luck to him.
Fucking lit.
Yeah. Although I'm quite confused that he's gone for Charles III, which is a risky name, because there've only been two Charles in the past, right? Very varying fortunes. One of them, Charles II, was greeted back from Europe as a hero and asked to reunify the country after the disastrous days of Oliver Cromwell and his sons' attempt at rule in the Republic, married a Portuguese Badine, and lived out a relatively decent life, and his son got to take over. The other Charles I, his dad, had his head chopped off. So very binary in terms of royal precedent. You could have gone.
Which way is it going to go for C3?
For C3. I mean, he could have gone for a regular name. He could have gone for George, a bit more stable.
C3.
Shout out Chris Paul. Could have gone for a George.
Shout out Lil Wayne.
Shout out Lil Wayne. Could have gone for a George, because you know they don't have to use their own name, right?
So they can pick whatever.
They can pick whatever. Well, so they're meant to really only pick one of their own middle names.
So he could have been like Lord Boniface or King Boniface.
Well, Boniface isn't one of his names, but he could have been a William. He could have been a something else. Yeah. So
it's got to be one of his names.
One of the middle names. Yeah. So Queen Victoria, her name wasn't Victoria. Mm-hmm. Her name was Alexandrina. She was named after her godfather, who was Alexander I of Russia. He was a Tsar. Anyone who's watched the Queen on Netflix will know that her old man, George VI, was called Bertie. His name was Albert. He wasn't a George either. only went for George to restore some semblance of stability after his brother abdicated.
Okay.
His Nazi brother wanted to marry a divorced American, and so he had to abdicate the throne.
I did read about that, yeah.
Yeah. And actually, Victoria's own son, Edward VII, was also called Albert. So it's called a regnal name. So he could have chosen anything, and he's gone for very, very binary choice with Charles. Good luck to him.
So, the future is William.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, look, fucking hell. King Charles is like, what, 73 years old. And have you seen that brother's hands?
Yeah,
and feet?
It's not giving great Connery health.
Brother, it's looking not so great for the king.
Great. Yeah.
Google King Charles's fingers.
Sausage them.
Thank me later.
Yes.
There's also pictures of his toes from where he went to some sort of mosque, I believe, on a trip.
Yeah.
Big
fan of Islamic studies, funnily enough.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. He's the head of a college at Cambridge or a study
did you
school
have
at Cambridge or Oxford.
Did you have people messaging you, offering condolences?
Yes. Had a German friend who was like, "I'm sorry for your loss," and I was like, "Oh." I was like, "I'm running out of family members, bro. Like, you can't scare me like that shit."
I had
one parent left.
I had an American guy who's like based in Hong Kong, who, shout out Ed, I ain't seen him in a long time. And he knows I don't give a fucking shit about this. But he still sent me a message saying, "Yo, condolences about the Queen, bro." And I was like, all right. And at work, I was at an event yesterday celebrating someone I know who got an OBE. And the irony about it is that we found out about the death because the person who was interviewing her as part of the panel discussion of this event, who is like the editor-in-chief of where I work, announced it. So you got the OBE that was given to her by King Charles, actually, not the Queen. An event centered around that on the day that she dies. It was really ironic. But before we went in, I was speaking to someone and she's like Latvian, one of my colleagues. And yeah, we have a bit of an up and down relationship. But like, she comes to me, she's like, "Oh, I really just don't understand, or I really don't know how the British public are doing and how they're going to be doing for the future in terms of their mental health as a result of this death."
They're blessed. They're down the pub.
And I was like,
it's blessed.
I was like, I mean, I'll be all right. And she was like, "Well, what do you mean?" And I was like, "Well, she's got 96 years under her belt.
It's proper innings.
Right? She did really, really good innings, right? I think, like most things, we're probably just going to like crack on with life after the funeral and stuff." And she's
we're
like,
going to keep calm and carry on. We're going to emotionally repress it. That's what the British do.
And then I got accused of being a hater, like multiple times.
Right, okay.
I'm apparently a hater because my mental health isn't going to be adversely affected by this death.
As well as...
So shout out both of those people because they clearly do not know me.
As much as internalising capitalism, what I should now internalise fucking feudalism as well. Is that the argument? Although I actually, for one, I have high hopes for Charles. I have high hopes for Charles.
Why?
Well, his grandson came out a bit African. And he wanted nothing to do with it, right? So if he takes the same approach to the diamonds, we could be on the road to reparations here, right?
Oh, yeah, true.
Right?
Big facts.
That one of the crown is worth 400 million quid.
Yeah.
We're building schools, roads and hospitals, baby.
Yeah.
The British Empire's paying back.
Lagos could hold some of that.
I mean,
do with it.
Almost everywhere can hold some.
No, but
there's a stretch
I'm
from the Med to the South Atlantic.
I got to take care of my people first, you know what I mean? Like Ghana doing all right. You know?
Fine.
We need the cash.
They're fine.
Actually, give no cash to Nigeria right now. We need to...
Sort the election out first.
To sort out our politicians
see who gets in.
So, as I mentioned at the start of this has been causing quite a bit of debate. If you've been in any WhatsApp chat, if you've been on Instagram, if you've been anywhere, this has clearly got two sides to the story. You got a whole bunch of people who are quiet.
Oh, the English are actually upset. They're actually upset.
Quiet. The people who are quiet, people who haven't posted anything, are the ones who are basically saying, "You expect me to cry? Do you want me to go out and die because she has died?" And then you've got all the other English who are kind of just like uploading all the videos, just. And you know, one line that keeps on coming up, which is I'm trying not to bite at, is when people are like, "No matter what your views are on imperialism and colonialism, you have to admit that this was a great woman." That's kind of like saying, and please, as the Jewish guy, please correct me if I'm wrong. It's kind of like being, look, I don't know what your views are. No matter what your views are on genocide of Jews, Hitler was a political genius.
Listen, whatever you think about gas chambers, he was a great builder of roads.
Right.
and it's time that we focus
Why do people
on
keep
our
saying it?
privilege of driving.
Why do people keep saying this shit?
It's fucking mad.
It's so mad. And some people have swung the other way in a big way. Shout out. Oof. Shouldn't say shout out really, but I said it anyway.
Kudos to
Trevor Sinclair.
Oh, yes.
Ex-footballer.
Yes.
Who basically used his Twitter page to say anybody who's black or brown should not be crying. You should not be mourning.
Yes.
And obviously that opened him up to quite a lambasting.
Yes.
How do you feel about that debate about how people are mourning and this sort of idea that irrespective of how you feel and how the generations that you are from and the generations before you have absolutely been adversely affected by colonialism in one way or the other, are being told that now is not the time?
So I'm going to do something quite rare and give breadmints to Jeremy Corbyn.
Oh yeah,
Because I think he's the person who's come out with the best expression of anything post-event. And so he tweeted, "My thoughts with the Queen's family as they come to terms with their personal loss, as well as those here and around the world who mourn her death. I enjoyed discussing our families, gardens, and jam making with her. May she rest in peace." And the reason that I referenced that tweet is because it speaks to the point of feeling sympathy for people who've lost a family member, an important family member to them, whilst simultaneously being able to maintain the view that the institution that she profited from, benefited from, and ran did horrendous things for 100 years. Not in Corbyn's case, but in the case of black and brown people, did horrendous things to them and to their ancestors, for which they are yet to receive any kind of acknowledgement, let alone apology.
Yep.
It's funny what the Free Speech Brigade determine appropriate or not to free speech about. It's a bit of a toxic point to make, but you can be fairly sure that if Ayatollah Khamenei was taken out, or if Putin was taken out, or some other unsavory character to the Western eye, you would have arguably the same conservative commentariat celebrating their death openly. And so what this is comes down to a matter of perspective. But it's a more personal experience than perspective, because there are people in this country of black and brown and other descent who will have grandparents with memories. There are still people of our age, especially people, for example, from Kenya, who will have grandparents who will remember the camps in the 50s and will remember the suppression of rebellions, and will still discuss people and things that were lost. And there are Nigerians who, especially Igbos in the southeast, who will have family in the Biafran conflict, who will remember how the British government armed brutal suppression of an independence movement.
Facts.
And so this concept of like policing how people grieve, I think people are entitled to be sad or not be sad, but people are also entitled to remember the meaning of her office in context. You can't expect people to sugarcoat or to be pleased be upset that somebody who represents an office that did so much destruction to their family has passed on. They certainly don't need to be forced into pretense of obedience, because that isn't a free society. And there isn't pluralism, that isn't liberty, that's tyranny. That's tyranny of thought. And I don't think that she wanted to preside over a country that acted that way herself.
I want to thank Lizzy for her life and for everything she achieved while she was here. That was positive.
What did she achieve?
That was positive. But posthumously, I also want to thank Lizzy for causing a postponement in all Premier League fixtures. For maybe the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's going to save Liverpool.
I say that as a Liverpool fan
it's bleak.
whose team needs a very desperate break.
Although, funnily enough,
but I'm on the topic of things that have been cancelled, because in this national state of mourning that we're in, the country's kind of shut the bed. The Bank of England interest rate decision's been delayed. I saw something today about the Met Office not giving...
that's an eventuality anyway.
Okay, but there was something about the Met Office not giving like...
out of respect, we're not going to tell you it's raining.
For the Queen, we're not going to give you weekly weather updates.
Fam, you might just want a day off. Just say it. We all want a day off.
If you just want a day off, just tell us. like, and obviously this leads up, as I said, to the funeral, which is going to be in 10 days. But what's gone very silent is how many bank holidays we're going to get, because
very quiet.
Inquiring minds would like to know.
Yes. Well, inshallah, there's one for the actual state funeral, which should be Monday week.
Everyone was sweating because if that funeral fell on a weekend, we would have got fuck all, apparently.
Fuck all, yeah.
That would have been awful.
Apparently they've made us a concession. They're going to nudge it a day. But funnily enough, when George VI died, they cancelled the posh sports. So horse racing stopped, cricket stopped, I believe the rugby stopped. But the football was allowed to go on because the commoners were just allowed to crack on with it. This time it's the opposite. Football's been cancelled, the rugby's carrying on, and the cricket at the test against South Africa is starting again.
One of my friends had like a really sweet romantic idea. He was like, football should still be on because it's very powerful to have on average 30 to 40,000 people paying tribute before and after games potentially. But he was also like, maybe the matches should be like 96 minutes long, and then on 70 minutes they do a clap or a moment of silence. And I thought that was like pretty cute. I thought it was
Yeah, that's not bad.
It's quite nice.
That's not bad. But they should be playing the games.
I think they should as well. The last point I want to talk about, which you've kind of touched upon and alluded to, is the future of the royals, of the monarchy and the Commonwealth, with obviously this surgence of separation and independence coming from the likes of Barbados and Jamaica, of course, who are talking about it now the most. What is the future in your mind with regards to the royal family and potential breakaways in the future? You think this is going to be the opportunity that they all strike at, or do you think it's just going to be a couple of anomalies?
So an achievement of the Queen, whether or not you deem it meritorious, was building the Commonwealth from the ruins of empire and getting countries to sign up and keep on or accept her as head of state. Curiously enough, the title of head of Commonwealth isn't hereditary. Charles doesn't necessarily get that. They have been lobbying for it in the last few years. But multiple prime ministers of Australia, for example, have basically said that when Lizzy goes, it's time to bounce.
Interesting.
And I think other countries will say the same thing. I think that as former colonies get braver, basically, in discussing the concept of colonial crimes in the context of having other economic partners, we're not, these countries are no longer beholden to a unipolar Western order, which makes them able to hold the former West accountable for their crimes of colonialism. They're speaking more of it. And I think that these movements will gain popularity across the Caribbean and across Africa, and we'll see more Republican bids. There was maybe some social credit in the bank. God knows the Caribbeans and the African aunties, they love Diana, and by extent, they had a bit of time for the Queen.
Yeah.
I don't think that credit passes down
I agree.
to Charlie.
That's what I said at the start. I think the popularity stakes are very much against the royal family as a result of this death.
And I think if I were a politician, I think it would be an extremely easy jingoistic card to play. Yeah. We've spoken multiple times about the power of politics no longer being in the middle. It's a very easy way to rile up a supporter base by saying, well, this is time for us to take a brave step and take back control and forge our own identity in the future. Come out of the shackles and the shadow of empire and be a brave republic all throughout the Caribbean. So I think we're going to see more of that. And I think this is it. The people have been saying that she's the last connection to a world of cooperative world, a world of greater consensus. But now that she's gone, not only are we not in that world anymore, it's the last vestiges of empire. This is the end of Britain. As we know it, I think, or as anyone knew it, but more importantly to us here than the empire breaking up and the Commonwealth trading away from us, it could be the end of the United Kingdom. She was a major tool of the conservative ruling class and an icon for keeping the country as a sense of unity, because she was an object of continuity. And now that object of continuity is gone. As much as it may embolden countries in the Caribbean and Africa to break away, it's going to increase the likelihood of Scotland and Northern Ireland wanting to do the same thing. And so I think after her, not only do we see a more disunited Commonwealth, but we see a more disunited kingdom. And I think that her reign has probably precipitated the last vestiges of downfall for the homeland after the empire collapsed.
Yeah. Rest in peace, Queen Elizabeth II.
Yeah, rest in peace.
What a run.
Yeah. It's an innings. I'll give it
God bless you and all of that. As we segue to the person who
killed her.
Potentially killed her.
Who killed her, basically. Who took her out. There's only room for one Liz in this tag.
Yeah, exactly. What do you reckon it was? You reckon it was like a really overly firm handshake or something?
I reckon she just like sneezed within 10 minutes.
Oh yeah, like Queen Lizzy was just like, yeah, we're very fucked. I'm out.
Yeah, this is it now. You're on the fourth turn of shitty leadership. This is fucking pointless.
I can't deal with it. I can't keep blessing these fucking idiots. I cannot keep giving these idiots my blessings. I think need to leave.
The idea of Liz Truss speaking at her funeral probably killed her.
Mental. But yeah, we have a new leader. We've been talking about this obviously for the last few episodes as this has all been happening, as the voting is taking place. It was Rishi versus Liz at the end. Liz, worst kept secret in the Conservative Party, obviously won. Rishi probably got more of the vote than anybody expected. Here we are with probably one of the least, can't believe I'm saying this again, one of the least impressive leaders we have had in generations.
Ever. I'd say ever. I'd genuinely say ever.
And voila. Enter Liz.
Fucking hell, it's bleak, isn't it? I mean, like, Cameron took office and you were like, okay, he's obviously a prick. And we all thought the Lib Dems might help out a little bit. But, like, you weren't concerned the guy was actually a moron, right? Then Theresa May took over and you were like, holy fuck, Palpatine's running the empire now. But again, not functionally an idiot. Then Boris comes in, you're like, okay, a lot of bluster, a lot of often very baffed, but also not a moron, right? Liz Truss, I genuinely fear, is actually an idiot. Yeah. It's actually an idiot. I've given plenty of anecdotes in the past of recommendations and Google reviews of her as a person from people in the know. And it's not good. It's not good.
And Liz Truss, in case you've forgotten, was a liberal Democrat, anti-monarchy, pro-Europe, pro-Remain... Republican.
Yeah.
Who then decided, you know what's better for my career? A cheeky little reversal of all of that shit.
Yeah, let me just switch that. Her parents are socialists.
Yeah.
Yeah, her old man refused to campaign for her.
Yeah, apparently he's pissed.
Gang.
I hear that.
I'd be fucking fuming if my kid turned out to be Tory, let alone Tory Prime Minister.
It's definitely going to happen.
Fuck. No way. Absolutely no chance.
I mean, yeah, I think the next time rich kids, poor kids get in touch with you, it will be when your son is rich enough to actually go on the show. He's going to be hella Tory.
Inshallah, I will not be on this island by the time that happens. This
Bruh,
country's fucked.
I'm sure they have some Dominican version that you can still join. Wherever the fuck you are,
catch me in the back end.
Catch you.
You'll catch me in the back end of the Venezuelan jungle post-American coup, just hiding.
So yeah, I mean, look, and a lot has been said about Liz Truss. We don't necessarily want to really go over some of the comments. We know what she stands for. You know what her politics are going to be like. But what was also quite interesting, obviously, was the appointments that she made quite early. Obviously, with a new leader comes a new cabinet. And she made a few headlines in the aftermath of her winning because she was the very first prime minister to appoint, or who appointed, no white men in the 4 senior
Great
positions.
offices of state.
What's it called?
Great offices of state.
Great offices of state. And if you don't know what that is Chancellor of the Exchequer, Foreign Secretary, Health, Home Secretary, and what was the other one?
First Lord of the Chancellery.
Bang.
Which is Prime Minister.
So she got a little headline for being diverse and inclusive, apparently.
Haram. Haram.
Problem is, it's like James Cleverly, Kwasi Kwarteng. And to be fair, I don't really know Suella Braverman.
Oh my God, she's maybe the only person more stupid than Liz Truss. Although, fair enough, Kwasi Kwarteng basically got the job. Apparently, allegedly, let me just say this one quickly.
Go on.
He was piping down Liz Truss for time.
Say word.
Yeah, he was piping it down. But also there was that rumour back in the day, allegedly, that Liz Truss is, how do we phrase this? Open to multiple entrances in her shenaniganery. And is known... I
think I'm warming to her.
Is known for having spads on the desk, quote.
My God.
Yeah, that was the rumour mill. Allegedly, according to sources, not us. We didn't say that.
You know, there are just some couples that you just don't want to imagine banging.
Yeah, that's one of them.
Like this, like one-dimensional sex that Kwasi Kwarteng and Liz Truss.
Straight missionary.
Brother.
Straight missionary.
But like, awkward slow mission.
Yeah. But not even like a nice slow
Like
wind.
it never
just
actually clicks, but because he's so undersexy, he busts a nut and it's just done anyway.
done, yeah.
And she's just like, oh my God, that was amazing.
She's got like her loo roll pre-prepped by the side.
Yeah.
Just ready to.
Like it's not her
to clean
first
up.
rodeo.
No, it's impressive to find a politician, and I'm going to say it, a black politician with less sauce than Matt Hancock. That itself is an achievement.
Yeah, and that's the thing that was quite frustrating for me. And I had a couple of white people who I work with, really good white people. That sounds mad to say. You know what I mean? God damn it. People who understand diversity and inclusion, right? Who were coming up to me and they were like, isn't it good? And I'm like, well...
Not really the Tories.
The thing is, like, whatever your political standing is, right? Kwasi Kwarteng isn't inspirational or aspirational at all for me.
No.
James Cleverly...
They're also all four of them private school educated. So it's not like
even less so. And to be honest, I don't mind that. You know, when people were talking about Rishi Sunak and his wealth and the fact that most of the time these politicians have to play...
But he didn't pretend to be rags to riches.
No, but... They always use the fucking phrase humble beginnings and all that shit, and it's just not true. But he did use that. He may not have said like I was poor, but he did say humble beginnings.
Well,
and to be honest, the problem is that like they get forced into that position, and I'm like, bro, I'd rather in some respects, I'd rather my PM be rich because I don't want them to be doing all kinds of nonsense with expenses and all this other shit because they're underpaid. And we've had that discussion about them being underpaid and the fact that they have to take secondary jobs and stuff. So I don't mind that because you can get people who are rich who get it. They may not necessarily get it fully, but if they are as smart and as proven as Rishi was in his space, it can potentially work out, especially if his mandate is sorting out the economy when he was the Chancellor of the Exchequer. I don't mind if you are privately educated, but for me, I don't look at Kwasi Kwarteng as somebody who is actively trying to bring in man after him who look like him. So that for me is a big issue. If you're looking at somebody like, what's Roundhead name again? Who was before Rishi as Chancellor of the Exchequer, Roundhead.
Sajid
Javid. Rishi Sunak was basically his protege.
Yep.
Right? And say what you want to say about Sajid Javid. I actually think he's a decent man. I think he's a decent man. I don't know his history. There may be some things that I'm missing out, but I think he's a decent man. And that's a clear example of what I mean. Like, he has identified this guy who looks like him, who's younger than him, who's got a future. He's brought him in and has basically groomed him to succeed him when that whole thing happened. I don't see Kwasi Kwarteng doing that. I don't see James Cleverly doing that. So when people are like, oh, it's a diverse cabinet, for who?
Yeah,
who's Kemi Badenoch helping out?
Yeah.
Who? So, yeah. We are in the midst of what people are worried about being an even more dramatic shift towards the right by Liz Truss. But clearly her first priority is sorting out whether or not I can turn on my heating.
Yes.
Next month until next April.
What a plan. What a clear, fantastically well-organised plan.
How do you think she's going to get on with that shit?
Well, she's just going to give a shit ton of cash to corporations, right? I think it came out that the wife of a Shell executive gave something like 50 grand to her election campaign.
Mazza.
And that's been paid off very handsomely because she's just passed a £130 billion package to energy firms. And now people have said to me, but what about how will the companies afford to pay it?
Is this Nelson Mandela?
No, it was Face Jacker.
Good afternoon, I'm calling from your bank.
How would these companies afford to pay or to finance anything? Right, it's fucking stupid, right? Because first alternative, rather than saddling us with debt, would have been to raise something between 75, 95, or even the whole 130 billion in windfall taxes. When you're the government, you can do that if you choose to. She's chosen not to. She's chosen not to tax the oil and gas companies. What she also could have done is structured the financing that these poor, desperate, record-making oil and gas companies in the term of a loan. She could have loaned these companies money and said the government will guarantee you liquidity and financing. And then when things are going a little bit better and you're not making record profits anymore, you can pay us back the cash. What has happened instead is that we're going to issue a shit ton of debt that our kids are going to have to pay off, and we're going to have to pay off over time. And that's going straight into the coffers of these energy companies to subsidize their tearing our eyes out. Fucking 60 million people at the same time isn't cheap. And apparently these companies need 130 billion quid to do it.
Why aren't we like France, Portugal, I think Spain as well,
Yeah.
in reducing the power of these energy companies? Why are we fundamentally not taking the decisions that these European countries are taking?
Because we're fundamentally not European, right? The majority of our political project over the certainly last 40 years, arguably 50 years, since the 70s, has to become more American. And what that means is creating a neoliberal economic system and a more individualized social system, which means two things. It means in practice that our politics conditions us to not believe that the capacity of the state can be utilized to benefit us, because we are given a mantra of the freedom of markets and the importance of business, and budget deficits and stupid things like keeping down borrowing over financing societal goods. But also the rise of individualism in the context of neoliberalism means that we have a very much diminished capacity for organized resistance. Our collective capacity has been drilled out of us since the time of schooling, really. It permeates our education system and our media system, to the extent that when the RMT have the audacity to produce a train strike, people are fucking shocked that this thing's even legal.
Shout out, Shoudo.
Shout out, Shao. Lover of the unions. But to the extent that people go, oh, fucking hell, you can do that? Fuck yeah. And it seemed like a bizarre form of resistance now, because it's not something that's been done effectively for the last 50 years, because that's the way that our society has been governed. So you ask, why do the French organize, and why do the Spanish and the Portuguese and the Germans all feel like they've got the gumption to get away with it? Well, it's because their societies have been moderately more protected from this Americanization of their political system and their social systems.
It's depressing.
And it means that they do retain some semblance of collectivism, and their politics is as far to the right, which means that their state is still beholden to the service of its people to a marginally better extent than it is to the service of capital. Although the European Union aren't doing particularly much better in weathering the storm, the gas storm, so to speak. But it's an inevitable endpoint of allowing capital to become our dominant actor in politics. We replaced feudalism, and monarchy disappeared, and we were, as I said a couple of times now, as we entered a post-war world, capital became the dominant entity over either land or a feudal or monarchic system. And the output of that is that the government and the means of government is run for the protection of capital, not for the protection of a feudal system or monarchic dynasty. And so what that means is that actually, even under a feudal system, you had to kind of behave a little bit, because the peasants would stop fucking raking the land. But now it doesn't really matter. The peasants stop raking the land, because you can condition them that if they don't work hard enough, they can't eat, because we're not going to pay them enough money to survive otherwise.
So how is this going to play out? Is she going to make it to 2024 with the general election?
Yeah.
Or is this going to blow up in her face before then? What is your prediction?
So it's going to blow up. It's going to blow up fairly soonish. My prediction, as I've already stated...
Wasn't there something saying that... There was something that was said that they tried to do a vote of no confidence, or there was something in the works for a vote of no confidence on the day that she got it. So something silly.
So the Boris backers were testing the policy through sympathetic journalists of putting letters of no confidence in to get Boris back in. Mental. So they were testing the appetite of getting Boris back in again. And I think it's not an unreasonable thing to think that may happen. But what will happen is, I think we go into a fairly fucked recession next year. Kind of maybe potentially worse than 2008. 2008 was a financial crisis, and the government launched QE, where they printed money to help people buy assets to get people out of a true economic hole. But that's very inflationary, and so they can't do that this time, because inflation is already a big issue. Yeah. And so when the economic crisis hits and people are defaulting on bills and eventually defaulting on mortgages as interest rates keep going up to fight inflation, what we're going to have is a proper consumer recession. And that's going to be aggressive. It's going to be very hard for people. And that's going to happen, I believe, next year. And so they won't call a general election next year. But what they're hoping is that they come out of the back end of the recession and the economy starts to look like it's growing again by December 2024.
And they can be like,
look, we're growing the economy.
Yeah.
We've weathered the storm, and
Beautiful.
we're still standing. And so, as I've said on this podcast before, I made the call that not only would Liz Truss win, but she will beat Keir
Whoa,
Starmer at the next election.
Whoa.
It's on the record.
Whoa. You said Ben Wallace.
Before he declared himself out.
If you
and
could,
then,
if you can
when
change,
it was still
my,
like
my
4
friends,
or 5 people in, I said
friends,
it would be Liz Truss and Rishi at the end. Liz Truss would beat him, and then would go on to beat Keir Starmer in general election.
If you can change your bet, I can change my bet.
Listen to the previous episode.
You said Ben Wallace.
Before he declared he was out.
Yeah, but when it's down to like the final 2...
It was the final 5 at the time.
Shut the fuck
Listen
up.
to it.
Shut the fuck
Anyway.
As soon as it went to the final 5, everybody knew Liz Truss was going to win. Shut the fuck up.
She will beat Keir Starmer in the next general election.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, but we did this on episode. You were like, oh, that's a triple bet. They will win.
Sounds like me.
They will win they will beat the Labour Party in 2024. They're already ahead in the polls, and we're now about to go through the largest jingoistic celebration of the death of empire that this country could possibly fucking conceive. This is about as rule Britannia
depressing.
that we could possibly get. So what they've done is they've hidden possibly the single most politically toxic policy that they'll have to enact. Are you slapping flies?
Yeah, I just saw a fly.
Cool. They've been able to hide the single most politically toxic policy they'll have to pass for the next couple of years under the death of the Queen. And that is this explicit wealth transfer from workers to record-making
She
all
definitely
companies.
killed the Queen, didn't she?
I mean, it would suit.
Yeah, she definitely.
It would help.
She's timed it nice.
Yeah. I mean, it covers her, covers the Met, covers a lot of bases. It's come at a very convenient time.
We can get in trouble for lines like that, can't we?
Allegedly.
Allegedly, yeah.
Allegedly.
Right, well, lose one, gain one.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've lost it in both senses, really. I would say this list is probably going to fuck us harder than the Queen did.
Whoa. Yeah, thank you for that. Do we go Chris Kaba or do we go Yeezy versus Adidas next?
I feel like we could probably do with lightening up a little bit before we round off on the serious topic.
Yeah, so look, you know me, I'm a Yeezy fan. Both the trainers and the man.
Embarrassingly.
The man, clearly I'm not a fan of this newer version of him. But what's been happening in the last week or so has been centered around the Yeezy brand and its issues with Adidas.
Right.
Now, many people will remember, I think it was about a decade ago, that marriage, that partnership was formed when Yeezy left Nike and joined Adidas. And what has then happened as a result is Yeezy's essentially gone from a brand that some people could get to a multi-billion-dollar business housed by Adidas, with shoes on the feet of many people in the world right now. But all apparently is not gravy in Germany.
Trouble in paradise.
As Ye has been calling out Adidas since about a week and a half over the first slight being he released these Yeezy slides. You know, I've got these as well. I've got a few Yeezys listeners, by the way.
Pathetic people, all of you.
Shout out all my Yeezy wearers. I don't love them all, but I do like the ones I like. But he has these Yeezy slides, right? The slippers. And Adidas released a sandal called the Adilette. And clearly, if you put these side by side, there are some very striking similarities. He said that it was a direct imitation. And then obviously the attacks went from being sporadic to quite intense and very personal.
Right.
Now, as I said, Yeezy is fully manufactured by Adidas. He doesn't own shares in Adidas, but obviously owns Yeezy. So it's a partnership between what he owns and Adidas.
Is there an expiration date on that contract?
I'm assuming so. But
like a 10-year deal or something?
I'm assuming so. I don't know the details around that, but it's a good question, and it leads me on to something else that I can help answer. So they've got a design team, partly Adidas, partly Yeezy. So you know, if you follow it, he often changes the designers of his clothing, changes the designers of his trainers. But obviously, a lot of the technology that went into the Yeezy kicks actually was Adidas. So like the first Yeezys all had the Ultra Boost technology, which is Adidas, right? So it was a partnership in many, many ways. But obviously he said, you've stolen my design. So please don't.
Don't do that again, please.
And then he did what he usually does, which is tweet or post and then delete that post.
Yeah.
As soon as he done it. Then Adidas had this thing called Yeezy Day, which is similar to Nike Sneaker Day, where they basically release either a new marquee shoe, which they want to get out, or they decide they're going to go back into their vault and release a whole bunch of shoes, releasing them at various times of the day, and it's a raffle and you get a chance to win a bit of Nike history. Adidas now do the same thing with Yeezys. So like Yeezys that came out when the Yeezys first came out back then will be released with some of the newer, harder to get ones. So it all becomes like a very exciting day for a sneakerhead because you have a chance to get some very exclusive heat. So Yeezy Day was in August, and he logged into Instagram to basically say that Yeezy Day 2022 had occurred without his consent, and that Adidas was dropping a series of sneakers that he didn't approve. And then there was another trainer called the Adifoam, which came out, which also very much looked like the Yeezy Foam Runner, which is the one that everybody calls the crocodile shoe. So last week, he then started posting again, started calling out Adidas executives, and especially one guy, this black guy called Daniel Cherry. Unfortunately, some of his fans got involved and started creating photoshopped images of this poor guy who nobody knows, which was obviously classic Kanye West bullying. And then he revealed things, to answer your question, that Adidas have actually offered to buy him out of the agreement for $1 billion.
Wow.
Sounds big, but the reality is that because of how much money he earns, he said that he's going to be earning like 500 million in royalties alone this year.
Holy shit.
So clearly not a really good deal for him. So he rejected that. But what then happened is that quite a few high profile people, including like Swiss Beats and even Diddy, came out and said, Adidas, you're bugging. We're going to boycott you. And that post was commented on by people like Naomi Campbell and famous footwear designers like Stephen Smith. And of course, Kanye West loaded that with the occasional reveal all of a text message exchange between him and Kim Kardashian regarding the school that the kids go to. So obviously Kim Kardashian always catches strays when he goes on Instagram. Where we are right now is he has come out basically today and said, I'm kind of taking it all back, and please don't direct any haste to any of the Adidas designers or any of the senior executives. And another part of this is obviously he's got the Adidas Gap thing going on.
The what?
Gap, Gap the brand.
Oh,
the high street shop. So he's got an arrangement with them as well to make clothes.
Okay.
And that manifests itself in just a Yeezy Gap thing. And then he involved Balenciaga as well. So it's like a Yeezy Gap Balenciaga thing.
Right.
And he also accused Gap already. And that agreement's only been like 2 or 3 years old. He's already accusing Gap of stealing his designs for like sort of like their standard in-shop pickups.
Wasn't aware anyone still went to Gap. I thought
nobody did, and that's why they signed him, actually.
Right. I thought like when Friends stopped running on Channel 4, people would stop shopping at Gap.
Exactly. But to put it into perspective, on announcement alone, they had struck this partnership, this long-standing partnership with him. Their stock market value basically doubled.
Really?
In a couple of months.
It's like an outdated Uniqlo, isn't it, basically?
Yeah, and it's all
baggy H&M.
Yeah, and it's all full circle for him because he used to actually work in retail at a Gap when he was young.
Okay.
So it's all a romantic story.
Okay.
He hasn't released a great deal, and I bought one thing from the collection, but it was like a really weird hoodie, which basically looked like a fucking belly top on me because I'm whamming it.
Okay.
So it's not really my bag, and the Balenciaga stuff is obviously too expensive, but he is now in this position where he feels like the people who he is partnering with are essentially stealing his ideas.
Right.
So it's caused quite a bit of a controversy.
Yeah, well known for temperate conflict resolution.
Yeah, exactly. Now, you don't really know the story.
No.
I want to know, now that you've heard it from my mouth, what are your first thoughts that come to mind? And then I'll tell you how I feel about this whole thing.
I mean, I haven't seen the products, but it sounds to me like Adidas testing the way of spinning out of Kanye. It sounds like a way of dropping what is unfortunately becoming a more and more toxic public influence to be associated with.
Yeah.
I don't know the context of the Gap deal, but I'm aware of what Yeezys are and how ridiculous people look with them on their feet.
Except me.
including you.
No.
But I'm also aware of how many people are willing to look ridiculous with them on their feet, and that makes a lot of money. So it would make sense that they would try and test the waters with their own product and take the bet that they've got better lawyers than Kanye West, because that's how these big companies do business. And when they're effectively done with a creator, they tend to come out on top.
And look, I don't think, and you're right, you've hit quite a few things on the nail on the head there, but the reality is the following. Adidas will fucking suffer the day that Yeezy goes away. I think Yeezy's always been prepping to be a standalone brand, a high street retail brand of its own right, merging trainers, clothing, and I think he had this plan for Yeezy Home as well, so maybe he'll just do like household stuff. So the day that comes is a long day for Adidas, right? Especially if he takes the business completely away from them and doesn't get bought out. Because Adidas were suffering before. Nike were killing it and still are killing it, right? Jordan became a billionaire fucking 3 times over as a result of just Jordans. And that's just one line of trainers that they do. So Adidas, Yeezy is the Jordan of Adidas, right? So it would not make business sense for them to lose him. But to your point, there's only so much an organization can take when one of their main stars is combining erratic behavior with potential psychotic episodes which involve threatening behavior to Pete Davidson and what would appear to be quite abusive behavior to his wife and all of this other stuff. Clearly from a ESG perspective and a corporate social responsibility and a shareholder's perspective, that's not a great deal to hang your hat on, right?
It's not great for the environment.
It's not great for people. It's not great for everything else. But the reality is that brands do this all the time, right? When they hire or when they go into partnerships with designers, like proper designers like Kanye West, eventually, based on the hype model that somebody like Kanye West brings with him, which is, as I said at the start, not everybody can get them, they use the hype associated with him to make other trainers more accessible to people who can't get the Yeezys. And they obviously price them at a much cheaper price point.
It's the iPhone XR.
So it's similar, but what people don't understand about places like Adidas is that they are actually categorized, or they have different designing categories in-house. So like Adidas Originals is a house within Adidas.
Swag, I like that.
Yeezy, exactly. Yeezy is a house within Adidas. And then there are like other partnerships with people like Parley and like Sean Witherspoon and all these other stuff. And sometimes they're quite separate within the building. So you might have designers, absolutely, who are taking inspiration from people like Kanye West, but it's still not a Yeezy. So Kanye West really shouldn't be that bothered about the fact that someone who is paying him handsomely for his designs and has given him this unbelievable wealth. I'm going to say they've given him it because he's obviously earned it and it's obviously his designs. But he shouldn't be worried that there is knockoff versions of what is still a very premium sought after product, because you still rarely have Yeezy releases which sit on shelves nearly fucking 7, 8, 9 years later. Nike do it all the time. You know, they may have the amount of, you can buy a pair of Air Force Ones, or you could buy a pair of trainers, I don't know, they might be called something like a Courtyard, which look exactly like an Air Force One, but are just like 40, 50 pounds cheaper. Yeah. Because not everybody can afford the super inflationary...
The only fucking one-way going price trend
the
of
inflationary Air Force One prices that are getting out of control now. Not everybody can afford that. So Nike needs to be everything for everyone, right? Yeah. So naturally they're going to do that. And I think that's all Adidas are doing here. Clearly there's going to be situations where other brands, whether it be Stella McCartney, who also has Adidas branded trainers, use similar technology, use similar designs, because it's proven track record. This shit works. People are buying Kanye West stuff off the shelf. Let me get a bit of that. But I don't think that he really has, other than just like a creative annoyance, much more of a right to stand on a high horse and be like, you're stealing my designs. Because make no fucking mistake, the very first Yeezy trainer, the Adidas Yeezy Boost 350 is a direct copy of the Nike Rossi Run, which came out years before.
I think I had those.
We all had those.
Yeah.
And Yeezy copied them. It's this idea of a foamy sole with a knitted upper.
Yeah.
And it's pretty much a
basic.
sock-like, fit. So he isn't really within his rights to say anybody's copying anybody, because the Yeezy 350 V2s is just an upgraded version of the V1s.
Yeah.
It's the same shit, right? Are we gonna call him an originator, knowing that the most popular Yeezy, the Wave Runner 700 is essentially just a glorified dad shoe, and we know that dad shoes came from New Balance basically, and all these other places. Are we gonna accuse him of that? So other than like a creative annoyance, he doesn't really have a right to. And I guess this is a much wider conversation about like ownership as well. Like if you're not in the boardroom, if you are not a owner of the company, then ultimately you still are to an extent a client,
An employee.
Yeah. Right. And I guess he's kind of in the middle ground between being a client and an employee. He's still a partner, but it is still an employee because they can ultimately pull the plug on it.
Yeah.
Right. And if you're not on the board, which he deserves to be at Adidas, he deserves to be at Gap, then you can't make these issues. You can't make these issues out of nothing. And ultimately you have to take a couple of L's. What I will say though, is I'm getting quite disheartened by how many people I know and or follow who are consistently clicking like on these posts and sharing these outbursts and these quite egregious displays of horrible behavior to other people. So all the people I know, please stop that because I'm judging you. I am judging you.
It's very culty, this
Mad, bruv.
Kanye West following.
Yeah, it's mad.
Which I'm kind of thinking, like, how much juice is left in the Kanye fruit?
Loads.
Do you think?
Yeah. Because this guy manages to reinvent himself for the generations after us with unbelievable effect, right? He's not just, he came out in 2003, so a lot of his fans have grown with him. And I think he's lost some of the older fans, but he's always been really, really good at reinventing himself. And I think fashion is one of the ways that he does that. If you see the things that he's designing for Gap and the music that he's making, it's with younger artists, with newer artists. He's always got his finger on the pulse. And the designs that he's coming out are very much targeted at younger people. So he has this really, really great ability of reinventing himself and making himself more appealing to younger generations. And of course, he's a genius. He's one of the most important, talented artists we've had, right? So the music's going to speak for itself. And the music's fallen off a bit to an extent.
Big time.
But he still knows how to make the music that people like. He does know how.
I mean, the last album was fucking awful. But
No,
I mean,
Donda wasn't, but...
It was dog
again,
shit. But anyway.
You should return to it.
No.
But anyway.
I don't know. It's a bit of a risky one because, like, yeah, okay. So he's provided a creative impetus, which is a world that I can never really get my head around or whatever. But like, fundamentally, the capacity of getting the shoes from a drawing board to shelves is driven by Adidas, right? So, like, as an example, when Liverpool changed shirt sponsor to New Balance. For a hot minute, there was a major pre-season crisis because New Balance didn't have the production or the distribution capacity to get the kits out to Asia in time for the pre-season tour, right? If Yeezy decides to defect from Adidas, who the fuck's going to make the shoes for him?
You'd be surprised how many brands are willing to categorically change their business process to have a Kanye West on board.
You think?
I'm talking.
That's why I asked the question about how much juice is really left in this fruit.
I think his
trading one way at the moment.
His stock is sky high because you know what it's like in Wall Street capitalism, right? So it's just about ultimately how much you can bring in. And he played the Yeezy rollouts to perfection because at the beginning you couldn't get the Yeezys on most drops, right? And he said at the beginning everyone's going to get them, but that process of making them much more available has basically been like a 6, 7, 8 year process. So only now can you freely go with confidence, feeling like you're going to get a Yeezy when they drop, right?
Yeah.
So he understands hype. He understands the hype machine. If he were to leave Adidas tomorrow and let's say made a call to Puma.
They just signed Skepta as
they did. Shout out Skepta, by the way.
Big up that one.
T-shirt he was wearing in that announcement post was fucking fire. I need that shit.
Hard, yeah.
But if he was to do a Skepta and go over there, they would change their business overnight. They would buy more factories. They'd give him everything he wants because they know that the net result would be, give it 1, 2, 3 years, $1 billion coming into Puma.
I don't know. Gen X. No, not Gen X. What are they? Gen Z as they're coming up now. If there's one thing they love doing is cancelling people. And Kanye is very much on the tightrope of just about to be cancelled.
Bro, this guy said like slavery is a choice. Can't bounce back. This guy's been bullying his wife in public continually.
Only so many of those you get, right? So I get that you get some polarized diehards, right? But you'll get to a point where he'll say something or do something to Kim or the kids, and the brand becomes toxic, and Adidas have to get rid. which is, again goes back to the question: how much juice is left in the
unless he
Kanye
does
fruit?
unless he does something like unforgivable, which, despite all of his madness, he still hasn't done.
Yeah, fair.
Unless he does something unforgivable, he can sort of walk this tightrope of just doing like.
And there's value. There is value in the tightrope. I understand.
100%.
There's big value in the tightrope. The
Yeah.
tightrope sells. I don't know. I just if I'm Adidas and I've got to sign another 10-year contract. And again, I haven't looked at the balance sheet. I don't know what the percentage of Adidas revenues is tied up in Yeezys. But if I'm,
I think it's like 65% or something.
Do you think?
Dumb. No, it is. It's something dumb. I'm telling you. Adidas was suffering when they took him on. But because they are this 100, 200-year-old organization, they have the infrastructure you were talking about, bringing on a guy like him wasn't as heavy a lift. But he still transformed their business.
Sure, he's transformed it, but the trade's done now, right? I'm guessing there's someone who can... I'm guessing there are other stars on Earth who could provide a comparable value, if not immediately making the same numbers up front.
You don't want
that don't come with the baggage.
You don't want like an Adidas trainer by Harry Styles, though, do you?
No.
You probably wear that, though, to be fair.
No, but there are other, there are other creators. There's a reason that Louis Vuitton signed Virgil Abloh as opposed to Kanye West, right? There are other creatives waiting in the wings, right? And again, if I were the CEO of Adidas, and I'm thinking about the next 10 years, and I'm thinking of potentially dropping Kanye, the first thing I'd do would be to try rip off his shoes and test them and see if we can sell them ourselves.
Yeah. And look, when he goes, there's no doubt there's going to be some very similar trainers that Adidas drop.
Popping out
They
fast.
will not sell because people are buying into Ye, right? People are buying into Kanye. And that's the one thing that needs to change if there's going to be any change in his fortune. People need to see him as not being this hero, this inspiration. That has to change. And look, I think it would be a shame if that happened, because this guy is truly, he's a genius. He's gifted. He's just really, really troubled. And he is in this really, really weird space where, irrespective of how egregious his behavior is, people are clicking like on that shit. You know, and then he manages to find ways of using his kids as justification for all this fucking behavior that he does.
Which is mad.
And people are still clicking like. And it's just like, I just wish people just wouldn't. You know what I mean? I wish people wouldn't reward this behavior, whether or not there's an acknowledgement that he needs help or not. I just wish people would just not feed into it. But that's celebrity. But yeah, it's very, very interesting, and I'll be keen to see how this develops. I think the end result will be that Yeezy will be a brand on the high street.
I think his ego will inevitably lead to him splitting.
Yeah, it will
Adidas
happen.
Anyway.
He will engineer an exit without a doubt, and this might be the beginning of it.
Yeah.
What will be interesting from a fashion perspective as somebody who is an owner of Yeezy is how that translates to technology. Who will be making the trainers? Who makes the trainers obviously has a huge impact on the price. Kanye West has always coined himself as being sort of on the higher end of fashion. Are people going to go from buying a cheap Yeezy slide from Adidas at, what was it? I don't know, 50, 60, 70 pounds to going and buying it independently because it's made from a manufacturer who doesn't have the scale of Adidas, and therefore the price is 150 pounds for a slide. Maybe that's when we'll see the empire fall a little bit. So maybe his fortunes are wedded to being next to a massive corporation like Adidas. We will see. But either way, I think he's going to end up on the high street anyway. So that's the end goal. I think he's too egotistical to share the limelight at this
100%.
stage in his career.
Yeah.
So yeah, watch this space. And who knows, man? If that brand becomes something big, his fortune will go crazy because he might go public. You never
Good luck
know.
to him. Yeah, good luck to him. But I just think everything he
So
designs
the
is
sky
shit.
is potentially the limit for that guy. I just hope he gets the help that he deserves. But yeah, shout out to everybody who is shaming themselves by continually liking this crazy
Yes,
behavior.
as if wearing the
I'm
shoes
seeing all of you.
isn't embarrassing enough.
Yeah, interesting. That's just my little geek moment. I like this stuff. This kind of conversations interest me. Before we get into relationship advice, I didn't really want to talk about this because, for obvious reasons, there was a police murdering this week. 24-year-old Chris Kaba, who was soon to be a dad and was engaged, was shot dead by armed police officers in Streatham following a police chase. I think it was automated license plate recognition, which had the police chase Chris in his Audi. And after a chase, he got hemmed in by two police cars in a narrow residential street. before a round was fired into the driver's side of the car with Chris driving. The result being his death. They tried to resuscitate him. He was taken to the hospital. He died later that night. And the police watchdog, the IOPC, said that after inspecting the vehicle that he was in, looking for a gun, they obviously found nothing. The only gun that was significant in that incident was the one that was used to kill Chris. Now, clearly the investigation is ongoing. He was part of, and this speaks to the narrative that is being spun right now about him posthumously. He was part of a MOBO award-winning rap group, 6-7. Now, if you know who they are, you can say what you want to say about them, but no matter what the content of their music is, no matter what the history is of some of those group members is, nobody deserves, by virtue of association, to be killed and murdered. And as I said, he was a soon-to-be father who had just recently been engaged. Naturally, his parents are heartbroken, and they are calling for the surrounding communities. They're calling for the Met Police to ensure that this is not forgotten about, because one thing I will say is that if you're hearing about Chris Kaba for the first time from this podcast, that's no fucking surprise, because basically there's not been a great deal of coverage over here. Mm-hmm. So the message is very, very clear from the family. We need to keep this story prominent, or we need to continually assert pressure on the authorities to ensure that the investigation is properly conducted into what was a vicious murder. Now, there's been a lot of naysayers, obviously, who said that he had a previous case, or I guess involving a firearm or possession of a firearm, all these things that are being said about this 24-year-old after he's been killed. And I don't want to stress this too much. I just want to call it what the fuck it is. It was clearly a hit. I don't know what circumstance which would have arisen, especially days after another rapper in central London was shot and killed in something that wasn't necessarily to do with the police. I don't know what circumstance would have arisen in Streatham, which would have had 2 police cars surrounding him, but still feeling like they needed to put a bullet through the car. I don't know what would have sparked that, but the unfortunate reality is that when you are black and when you are young, it doesn't really take a great deal for that to be the outcome. It puts to bed all of these fucking myths about, if you come from a broken home, if you haven't got a father figure, you're going to end up this way eventually. This was somebody who had a very loving family, mum and dad at home, church-going, religious, African family, and the outcome was still the same. This is somebody who, to my knowledge, unless you're going to correct me, didn't have a criminal record. But the reality is that this 24-year-old is the latest young man who looks like me, who has been killed after an altercation with the police. And my heart is heavy. I didn't want to talk about this when we were talking about topics today. And there's not a great deal to say other than rest in peace to Chris Kaba.
Amen.
Condolences to the family.
Amen.
Justice needs to be served. None of us are holding our breaths because we know how this goes. And honestly, I've said it a few times on this podcast, and it doesn't always relate to young black men being killed. It just seems to be whenever police are involved with this kind of stuff. I'm just tired of this being the outcome, right? And I'm sick of it. We are all sick of it. His mum put it perfectly right. My fear is that if my son wasn't black, he'd still be here.
Yeah, I mean, and going on kind of bodies of available evidence, Auntie's kind of got a point. The line I think they came out with was something along the lines of the vehicle itself was noted as potentially having been involved in an incident earlier in the day. I don't know what kind of incident requires multiple police cars with numerous armed officers to do a very hard stop. A head-on collision, I think they did.
Yeah.
to pull him on the side of the road and then shoot someone with such urgency that you don't actually check whether or not they're armed, having crashed into them. That's like either active murder inquiry or someone on the run or some kind of terror incident level response, which ostensibly seems extremely unlikely that Chris Kaba was involved in. You can only imagine that this is a classic trigger-happy copper who needed an excuse, and the excuse was that it was late at night and the fellow was black, and that's job done, unfortunately. But it's another horrific crime of Her Majesty's Constabulary, another instance of the state executing a citizen extrajudiciously, and an awful event for another family dealing with a loss. So, as you said, what else is there to say beyond it's incumbent on everyone to maintain the pressure and ensure that coverage doesn't get lost in this Jubilee noise or the funeral noise, and that the police are pushed to not only conduct a swift internal inquiry, but are pushed to see that justice is done for Chris's family, and that the officers involved, if or when found to have acted unprofessionally, are held accountable for their actions. And yeah, just Christ knows how you would even deal with something like this, but thoughts and love and prayers to auntie, uncle, and all of the family.
Yeah, rest in peace. We know how it is. I'm sure 6-7 will be in, and I don't want to talk too much, but I'm sure 6-7 will be in tracked. I'm sure that they're on a list. I'm sure because of some of the problems of the group, it's all linked. For me, none of this is a coincidence. I'm just really, really sad that somebody who had his whole life ahead of him, who, you know, I listened to some of his music, was actually pretty decent. Not particularly my genre of music being drill mainly, but decent. And obviously 6-7 are Mobile Award winners. They were being targeted, and it's just a shame that this is what it's come to. There's absolutely no reason this should have happened. I don't know why there is an Americanization of our police force here, which sees us shoot first and ask questions after, especially if you are in a car. Take out the tires. I don't know, shoot at the back.
Tell him to get out.
Yeah, tell him to get out. Shoot at the back of the car so that you put the fear of God in him, so he knows you have a gun on him, and that is a possible outcome.
You've already head-on crashed him.
Right, you've crashed into him. It could have ended so differently. And the reality is that, you know, we still have police officers who want this to end in only one way. We need to segue hella aggressively to relationship advice to pick up the mood, because boy, I can't deal with it, man. I'm at that stage in my life now where I'm proactively, it's not on an ignorance is bliss type thing, but I can't continually ingest these stories. You know, the stakes are high for me. I'm a parent. This stuff, like, I don't want to leave the house with fear. I don't want to raise mine with fear in them. But the reality is that we are so far removed from ever being in a situation where I don't have to raise them with that fear. And that is very disheartening. But yeah, let's sort out someone's love life before I start crying.
Bit of a sticky one this week.
Hey.
Bit of a sticky one this week. This is kind of maybe one of the first ones where I've felt like this might be above our pay grade.
Okay.
My boyfriend and I have been together for 2.5 years.
Okay.
We met on a night out, and since then have gotten very close. He's a little bit older than me. I'm 27 and he's 34. And he was the first older man that I'd ever been with.
That's not an older man, is it?
Well, 27.
Anyway,
27
7 years. That's perfect, to be honest, for him.
Well, I mean, well. Over the last 2.5 years, we've spoken a few times about our future together, and I'm aware that although I'm on a clock, he is further down the track than I am. I have made it clear, however, that marriage isn't something that I'm immediately prepared for, and nor are children, and he has said that he is ready to make the jump when I am.
Ooh.
Last week, he went away on a business trip,
Okay.
and I was doing some spring cleaning.
Oh, God.
When I was going through the drawers, I found a wedding ring.
Oh.
I feel like he has ignored my wishes, and I feel also like I'm scared that he hasn't listened to the fact that I'm not ready to get married.
Oh, man.
We are going to visit his grandparents in Tanzania in November, and I'm worried that he's going to pop the question then.
Oh, God.
I've told him that I'm very excited to visit, and we have a week and Zanzibar booked as part of it, and it seems like this is the obvious outcome.
Oh, this is sticky.
What do I
This is sticky.
do?
I'm not going to lie. This is sticky.
This one I feel like it's above pay grade.
This is a tricky one. First of all, my guy, like, fucking hell, man, put the ring somewhere.
Someone better in it.
brother.
Somewhere better,
Come
bruv.
on, what are you doing?
Just a small spring cleaner she found you,
know
bro.
what I mean? Like,
Come on, man.
Jesus Christ. You just
Leave it at your boy's house or so, or your mum's or
You
something.
know what I mean? Like, friggin' boxer drawer. She's like, oh, what's this? Like, it's a box. Oh, like,
Boom.
box. Yeah, there it is. Look, I'm going to guess the race. And I'm going to say she's certainly not African because these African women, they want to be married quicker and quicker these days.
Immediately.
Oh, my God. So I'm going to say she's very white.
She's European. I wouldn't go with very white, but she's certainly European.
All right, fine. Look, with this stuff...
She's like factor 20, not 50.
With this stuff, conversation is going to need to be very, very, very critical. Now, 27 years old. She's already mentioned that she's got a clock, right? So she's aware of that. I personally think, that's
too young to be worried about the clock.
Exactly.
That's too young to be worried about the
100%,
clock.
100%. There are plenty of low-risk pregnancies and births well into the 30s, but each case, obviously, is different. But to your point, way too early to be talking about clocks. However, you do have to understand, and you do take some responsibility for getting with somebody at that age who is naturally going to be at that stage quicker than you. If you stay with a person who's just about in their early 30s and they're moving towards their mid 30s and you're with them for a couple of years, it is naturally acceptable for him to think, yeah, this is the person at this stage in my life that I see myself being with. You, madam, haven't been managing those subtle clues and those subtle hints that women drop all too regularly very well.
I think that's unfair.
No, it's not. Let me land.
Please continue.
Because we all know when it comes to like marriage and all of these things, it's very rarely this fucking speculative thing where he just pops out of nowhere. Because my man has to know what type of ring you want. My man has to know your ring size. Man needs to know like whether or not marriage is something that you're interested in. And all of these things take place in relationships over the course of some time. It might be the odd dinner here where it brought up, oh, how do you feel about marriage? Do you see yourself getting married? And a woman might say something like, yeah, at some point. Like that kind of stuff takes place over time. It's very rarely, I think, very rarely does a man just say, I know her size, I know exactly the ring she wants, bang, going to buy it, boom, proposal, didn't see it coming. Very rarely. Marriage proposals are very managed processes, is what I'm trying to say. So I think she takes some responsibility for this guy feeling like she would say yes. Because I don't think you get that from out of nowhere. At the same time, that doesn't necessarily solve her problem. Because here she is looking at this box thinking, fuck, this is too soon. Maybe I've changed my mind. Maybe she's had a change of heart. I think this is make or break. Because if you do not want to marry this guy anytime soon, you are potentially leaving him on ice and delaying his process of baby making. Now, the advantage is he's a guy. And a guy can have a kid whenever the fuck he wants. He can get married whenever the fuck he wants. But maybe he doesn't want to do that. Because let's face it, having kids isn't an old man's game, right? You have to have energy. You have to have all of that. So this is kind of make or break. She has to be very explicit now that she has found this box and not try to like dance around.
So do you think she should confront it straight up?
She has to.
I found the ring, baby.
I found the ring. We need to have a conversation, because that could mean that it ends up being one of two outcomes. Either she decides he's dead keen on doing it in 18 months and she's not ready, so they have to break up. Or through conversation, she might find out this guy is willing to say, all right, cool, I'll give it to you 30. Because for him, that'll be 37. Not too bad. Maybe they can do other big sort of statements of commitment in the meantime, like maybe buying a house together. Maybe they have, I don't know, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I like that. That's a nice idea, yeah.
But either way, that conversation has now become an accelerated one. So when he gets back from his business trip, he will enter the house. He will go into the kitchen. He will see a box. It will be open.
Yes.
And she'll be standing there
with saying, a glass of red wine.
We need to talk.
Yes. But do you not feel she has told him that marriage is something that she's not ready for? Do you not feel like she has a right? I think she said she feels like he's not taken her concerns seriously, or he's not taken her views seriously. She feels betrayed that, having expressed that she's not ready for marriage, he's still bought a ring. Do you think she's right in that grievance?
I guess you could say that.
Because essentially 80% of our relationship advice segments come down to communication. And it doesn't seem like there's been a fault of communication on her part here. Seems like she's been clear and he's made his mind up.
I just don't think you would, right? You don't take that risk as a man thinking you're going to have your proposal said no to.
Do you think she's actually not been as clear as she thinks
100%.
she has? Because women don't do that. That never happens.
This is Johnny Vivas with that statement, labeling and branding all of you women under the same bucket. I think you're right though. Like there is, like, bro, it's never happened to me, but like, can you imagine like your proposal being rejected, a marriage proposal being rejected? That's the kind of wahala man does not need to experience, not even once in life, right? So would you take that risk? Unless you're like some absolute fucking weirdo, it's just like, fuck it, I'm an opportunist. Let's see how it goes.
Fucking Leroy Jenkins.
You know what I mean? Like, unless you're that person, why would you do it unless you had some inkling that this might go your way?
So you raise an interesting point, Richard.
Please.
So I'd like to enter.
Please enter.
My own views. The question I have for you, baby girl, in this state of confidence that you're exuding, is how do you know the ring is for you?
Big fucking question.
How do you know the size fit? Did you try?
That's a very good question.
Did you put it on?
That's a very good question.
Did you is it the stone you asked for? Is it the setting that you've spoken about? Is it from the jeweler you didn't visit a jeweler together?
Hatton Garden did not get visited.
Is he on any other holidays before?
How frequent are these
Tanzania.
business trips?
Yes. Just throwing it out there.
Can you imagine if he comes home from a business trip, the ring's on the table, she's standing there with a red wine talking about we need to talk, and he's like,
don't touch Lisa's ring.
or who knows, maybe a really nice resolution of this will be him basically saying, this is what I'd fucking do, by the way, if I thought that she wasn't going to say yes.
Go on.
After I got back from the business trip, I'd be like, oh yeah, no, that's not for you. That's just like my mother. That's an heirloom. That's my mother's engagement ring. And the day that I'm ready for proposal, that's going to be the ring I use.
It's there.
That
in
would
the
be the
locker.
out. That would be the out.
That's the backup.
That'd be the out.
That's quite a good out. To be fair.
That'd be the out for me.
But then she went.
But I'd probably still have to end it with her. Yeah. But I'd probably still. Yeah, she probably would do that. She probably would.
So who are you waiting for?
But they'd probably still have to end, right? Because I don't know. Do relationships survive the failed marriage proposal?
Oh, interesting. Can you Google it?
Okay, while you talk.
Can you Google it? So for me, I think taking this semi-seriously, I think it's a confronters. Yeah, it's a big confronters. It's a.
What am I Googling, by the way? This is the maddest Google search I've done in my life. Do marriages survive rejected marriage
I'm
proposals?
going to go out on a limb and suggest you probably Googled weirder shit than that. But
to be fair.
I think she has to confront it. I think she has to say, look, I found your ring. And she has to do that because she has to understand the sensitivity of it to him, right? If she does care about this person, then she'll understand that this is a large commitment. Well, a prima facie should be a large commitment from him, and it will be distressing for him to find out that his surprise has been rumbled, right? And so she should care about that emotional journey that he's going to have to go through. And so she shouldn't let it linger until he does propose in Zanzibar, because that's fucked, because she's, by the sounds of it, going to say no having let him take her on holiday to meet the grandparents before that happens. So she should confront it for the good of her and for the good of him and for the good of whatever kind of relationship she may want to save. So if you don't confront it, the relationship fails. But if you do, then there's still a chance to walk through. But have you found the statistics?
Oddly enough, there are no such statistics.
There aren't, no?
I mean, who's collecting that data? Fuck's sake.
So she has to confront it. And I think she has to be clear. I think she has to make a view. I think she also, unfortunately, she has to make her mind up. And she doesn't necessarily have to commit to marrying him now. But she needs to make her mind up on whether or not marriage is something that she can see in the next few years. And if this guy is someone that she can conceive marrying if she is to get married in the next few years.
But this is the thing. It begs the question, right? Like, it begs the question, like, if you're not willing to, after 2.5 years isn't a long time to be with someone before you start talking marriage. It is quite quick.
And I can understand why it's happened because 2.5...
But at the same time,
is easy to make your mind up when you're 34 than when you're 27.
Yeah, but
right?
I think it's safe to say that women are better at understanding at that stage whether or not the guy they're with is the one at that stage, right? And we all know marriage doesn't fucking change anything, right? Like, marriage is just a fucking document, as they all say. So if she isn't ready at 27 going on 28 or whatever it is, with this guy in mind, then they're essentially just kicking a can down the road. And if she doesn't see him like that now, when will she see him like that?
Yeah, I'm going to say toxically it's a great age to break up.
I mean,
it's a great age to be single.
But it's also getting cold, bruv. So it's also getting very cold outside.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Although conversely does work in favour on these hinge streets. It's not a tactic I'm willing to get into at this moment in time.
Okay.
But I think for the sake of you both, that after 2.5 years, I mean, he's 34. You're right in that men have time. However, you also made the point that he might not want to wait until he's 37 or 38. He certainly doesn't want to wait for 37 or 38 for someone to find out they don't want to marry him.
Exactly.
Because that's fucked.
Exactly.
Because then what's he start? Then he's bidding 40 by the time he actually... Then that's bleak, isn't it? So I think, unfortunately, as I always say, one of my favourite mantras is you can only play the chessboard in front of you. And as it turns out, your chessboard is stacked to shit. So you have to confront it. And in the time that you're confronting it, you also kind of need to make a decision on whether or not you're going to marry this guy.
And look.
And that's bleak. That's horrendous. But that's your chessboard.
Yeah.
Do you want to marry him? If you don't want to marry him now, but you can see it happening in a couple of years, then you communicate that. And it's up to him to make a decision whether or not he's happy to wait.
But then the question becomes like, if you see yourself marrying this guy in the future, then
why not do it now?
Do it now.
Well, because she might not want the change in lifestyle, right? She might have friends who are single. She might have
It doesn't change
He might. Okay, so then they might need to have a conversation on the lead time between marriage and kids, because he might be able to take the bargain that, okay, we get married, but we're not having kids for another 4 or 5 years, and that's fine. But I just want to make this commitment to you, and I want you to make this commitment to me. Yeah. But I don't really want you to change your lifestyle. And if she's happy on those terms, maybe that's something that she agrees to. But she needs to confront it. I agree with you. It needs to become Machiavellian. You can't put this one off. What was Machiavelli? Machiavelli said that an issue that isn't confronted becomes a problem. Exactly. And unfortunately, you now have a big issue. Absolutely. And before it becomes a problem for you both, it's time to talk.
Stop snooping around these fucking boxes. What do you mean spring cleaning? Shut up. Yeah, you were looking for that shit.
That's a straight lie.
The fuck you mean?
She was rummaging.
Proper rummage. Spring cleaning.
But you know what my mum always used to say? Don't go looking in places you aren't invited, because you might find something you didn't want to look.
Exactly. Keep your suggestions, submissions, I should say, coming in.
That was quite a hard one.
Yeah, that's quite difficult. But I think we nailed it, because the communication is going to be key there. She's got like cold feet about it all. Yeah. And she's got to get more comfortable with the idea, especially if this is the guy. If it's not the guy, then can we stop wasting time? I'm 34. I need to find my wife. Yeah.
Marry or be free, baby.
You know what I mean? New music. I don't think anything's come out in the last week, but what did come out, which is bloody incredible, is the We Cry Together video from Kendrick Lamar's album. What's it called again? Mr. Steppers. Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers.
Yes.
I can't believe I forgot that. But yeah, the new single is basically like a little mini movie. If you know the song We Cry Together, it's basically about... it's sort of like being in the living room of two people having a really, really bad argument. A couple having a bad argument.
Oh, that one was good. I like that one.
Right. So they've done a video for it, which is basically like a mini film, and it's incredible. So check that out.
Well, there's an album that everyone was hyping about as well.
Which one?
I can't remember the name. Asake or something. Fuck knows.
I don't know. I didn't see it. To be honest, I've been so out of the loop this week just because of how busy life has been. I probably missed that shit. But yeah, that's a video you guys need to check out. It's kind of like slowly creeped out. Oh yeah, The Forever Story by Jid is one of the best hip hop albums that come out this year after Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers.
Big claims.
It's huge.
Big
It's
claims
amazing. But
being
he's a
made.
phenomenal rapper, and the album is dope. Johnny, it's been a pleasure.
As always. Thanks for having me.
Get some burgers down you, because with this cost of living crisis,
Nope.
I don't want to pay you
Nope.
any of my money.
I'm actually starving myself in preparation for the Tory winter.
Lovely. You know where we're gonna be. We'll be back very, very soon. You know where to find us. Shout out for the support as always.
Thanks.
R.I.P. Lizzy. You did your thing. You did your thing.
Well, more importantly, R.I.P. Chris Kaba, to be honest, because
R.I.P. Chris Kaba.
Lizzy wasn't murdered by the state, although she was murdered by the Prime Minister, allegedly.
And on that note,
Bye.
peace.